השמיענו אל המיוחד, אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשמו תפארת ולתהילה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי היא מקור הברכה. מראש מקדם נסופה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. ימין ושמאל תפרוצי, ואת אדוני תריצי. על יד איש בן פרצי, ונשמחה ונגילה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, ומשבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, ונשבת נקבלה. בואי שלום עטרת מעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה. תוך אמוני על זה שבת נקבלה. בואי לקראת קהלה, ונשבת לקראת קהלה. בואי שלום הנשמה תהלל יה, הללויה. כל
מודעני לפניך, מלך חי וקיים, שחזרת בי נשמתי בחמלה. מודעני לפניך, מלך חי וקיים, שחזרת בי נשמתי בחמלה. רבה אמונתך, רבה אמונתך, רבה אמונתך, רבה אמונתך. מודעני לפניך, מלך חי וקיים, שחזרת בי נשמתי בחמלה. מודעני לפניך, מלך חי וקיים, שחזרת בי נשמתי בחמלה. רבה אמונתך, רבה אמונתך,
רבה אמונתך, רבה אמונתך. מודה אני לפניך, מלך חי וקיים, שחסרת
נשמתי בחמלה.
מודה אני לפניך, מלך חי וקיים, שחסרת ונשמתי בחמלה. רבה אמונתך, רבה אמונתך, רבה אמונתך, רבה אמונתך. ירלי לי 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 לי, ירלי לי לי לי, ירלי לי 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 לי, ירלי לי 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 לי, ירלי לי לי לי, ירלי לי 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 מודה אני לפניך, מלך חי וקיים, שחסרת ונשמתי בחמלה. I offer thanks to you, ever-living sovereign, that you have restored my soul to me in mercy. How great is your trust. Boker Tov, everyone. Boker Tov. It's a nice morning of Shabbat. And as we enter this sanctuary, we take a moment to acknowledge each other. And I don't know if you saw it, but I was running a bit late. And the reason is because I got stuck, gladly stuck in Torah study. I was so, besides the fact that the conversation was wonderful, and it was, as always, but I was so touched by seeing community, by experiencing community. And as I enter this sanctuary, I have in my mind the value, the power of this community. And so every time that we enter into the synagogue, into Beit Knesset, we say, "Ma tovu alecha Yaakov," we take a moment to acknowledge the beauty of our community, the sacredness of this space that we create together. Ma tovu alecha Yaakov, משכנותיך מה טובו עליך יעקב, משכנותיך ישראל. בני ברוב חסדך אבוא ביתך, אשתחווה לך על קודשך ביראתך. אדוני אהבתי מקום ביתך ומקום משכן כבודך, בני אשתחווה ואכרע אברך לפני אדוני עושי, בני תפילתי לך. אדוני את רצון אלוהים ברוב חסדך, ענני באמת אישך. We now turn our Sidurim to page 194 for the blessing for the well-functioning of our bodies. And whether you are holding a Sidur or not, I invite you just to take a moment and to think about your body, to give some attention to the carrier, to the vessel of your soul. And maybe to acknowledge a specific part of your body that needs some special attention in this morning of Shabbat. And as you do so, try to start recognize your breath. And as you bring fresh air into your system, make sure that when you exhale and you breathe out, you get rid of all the things that you don't need to keep with you. Once again, take a deep breath. Say, Baruch atah Adonai rofeh kol basar umafli la'asot. Blessed are you, Adonai, who heals all flesh, working wondrously. אלוהי נשמה שנתת בי טהורה היא. We daven on page 196, the blessing for our souls. נשמה שנתת בי טהורה היא, אלוהי. נשמה שנתת בי טהורה היא, אתה בראת, אתה יצרת, אתה נפחת בי, ואתה משמרה בקרבי, ואתה עתיד לתלה ממני ולהחזירה בי לעתיד לבוא. כל הזמן שנשמה בקרבי, מודה אני לפניך. כל הזמן שנשמה בקרבי, מודה אני לפניך. אלוהי ואלוהי אבותיי, אדוני אלוהי ואלוהי אמותי. ריבון כל המשים, אדון כל הנשמות. ריבון כל המשים, אדון כל הנשמות. אלוהי נשמה שנתת בי, טהורה היא. Dear God, the soul that you have given to me is pure. As far as that soul is within me, I will express my gratitude to you every day, in my thought and my actions. Praise are you, Adonai, in whose hand is every living soul and the breath of humankind. Baruch atah Adonai, asher biyado nefesh kol chai, ruach kol basar ish. We turn our Siddur into page 198, the blessings for the daily miracles.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has given the mind the ability to distinguish day from night.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who opens the eyes of the blind. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who frees the captive.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam,
who lifts up the fallen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who stretches the earth over the waters. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who strengthens our steps.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, מלביש ערומים. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, הנותן ליעף כוח. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, המעביר שינה מעיני ודמומה מעפעפיי. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, שעשני בצלם אלוהים, who has created all human being equal. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, who has given me free will, שעשני בן חורין. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, שעשני חוממי את ג'ו ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אוסר ישראל בגבורה. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, עוטר ישראל בתפארה. On page 204, for the blessing for the study of Torah, we remind ourselves every day our commitment to engage in study, to develop our minds, and to keep thinking about how to connect and reconnect with our values. Please join me. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. יערב נא אדוני אלוהינו את דברי תורתך בפינו ובפי עמך בית ישראל. O Adonai, our God, let the words of Torah be sweet in our mouths and the mouths of your people Israel, so that we, our descendants, and the descendants of all your people Israel, may know you, by studying your Torah for its own sake. Baruch atah Adonai, המלמד Torah לעמו Israel. Blessed are you, Adonai, who teaches Torah to your people Israel. On page 206, you can join Gabi in English.
These are things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world, while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honoring one's father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study, morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among people. But the study of Torah encompasses them all.
We turn our Siddurim to page 212 for the blessing for the Psukei de Simbra.
Baruch Shemot ve'yaholam, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemot, Baruch Choseh Bereshit, לנצח, ברוך בודד ומציל, ברוך הוא, ברוך שמו.
Songs of praise to extol you and proclaim your sovereignty, for you are the source of life in the universe. One God, life of the universe, praise and glorious ruler, your name is eternal. Baruch Meulal, Batishbachot, Baruch Meulal, Batishbachot, Baruch Atah Adonai, Melech Meulal, Batishbachot. Blessed are you, Adonai, sovereign, who is glorified through songs of praise. Melech Meulal, Batishbachot. We'll take a technical moment. And we will change the battery of my guitar. And we'll see if I come back to life with this. I'm thinking about the things that give us life or energy. We turn our סיורים to page 214. זה שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני. A song for Shabbos, song of gratitude to God.
טוב להודות לאדוני, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר ולזמר לשמך עליון, טוב להודות לאדוני. טוב להודות לאדוני, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר ולזמר לשמך עליון, טוב להודות לאדוני. היי הוי להגיד בבוקר חסדך, הוי להגיד בבוקר חסדך, באמונתך בלילות, באמונתך בלילות, טוב להודות לאדוני. היי ולהגיד בבוקר חסדך, הוי להגיד בבוקר חסדך, באמונתך בלילות, באמונתך בלילות, טוב להודות לאדוני. היי ולהגיד בבוקר חסדך, הוי להגיד בבוקר חסדך, באמונתך בלילות, באמונתך בלילות, טוב להודות לאדוני. היי די דה דה די די דה דה די דה 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 די, יא לה 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 די דה דה די די דה דה די, יא לה לה די 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 די, יא לה לה די די דה דה די, די לה 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 די די דה. Hey da 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 da, yeah 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 da 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 da, yeah da 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 da. אשרי העם שככה לו,
אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו, אשרי העם שככה לו, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו, אשרי יושבי ביתך עוד יהללוך סלה, אשרי יושבי ביתך עוד יהללוך סלה, אשרי העם שככה לו, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו, אשרי העם שככה לו, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו. תהילה, תהילת לדוד, הרוממך אלוהי המלך, לברכה שמך לעולם בהן.
בכל יום אברכך והללה שמך לעולם בהן.
גדול אדוני ומהלל מאוד, בגדולתו אין חקר.
גדול אלוהי ישבח מעשיך וגבורותיך יגידו.
הדר כבודותיך בדברי נפלותיך עשיך.
וזוז נורותיך יאמרו וגדולתך ספרנה.
זכר רטובך יביאו בצדקתך ירננו.
חנון ברחום אדוני, ערך אפיים וגדול חסד.
טוב אדוני לכל, ברחמיו על כל מעשיו.
יודוך אדוני כל מעשיך וחסידיך יברכוך.
כבוד מלכותך יאמרו וגבורתך ידברו.
להודיע לפני האדם גבורותיו וכבוד הדר מלכותו.
מלכותך מלכות כל העולמים וממשלתך בכל דור ודור.
סומך אדוני לכל הנופלים וזוקף לכל הכפופים.
עיני כל אליך ישברו ואתה נותן להם את אוכלם בעיתו.
פותח את ידיך ומשביע לכל חיירתו.
צדיק אדוני בכל דרכיו וחסיד בכל מעשיו.
קרוב אדוני לכל קוראיו לכל אשר יקראו באמת.
רצון ירב יעשה ושבתם ישמע ויושיעם.
שומר אדוני את כל אוהביו ואת כל הרשעים ישמיד.
תהילת אדוני ידבר פיי ויברך כל בשר שם קודשו לעולם בהן.
ואנחנו נברך יה מעתה ועד עולם הללויה.
Page 218, hallelujah. Master of all generations, who is praise in a multitude of praises, who guides the world with abundant loving kindness, and all creatures with mercy. Adonai neither slumbers nor sleeps, but awakens the sleeping, arouses those who slumber, gives speech to the mute, and God loosens the bonds of captives. God supports the fallen and strengthens those who are bent over. You alone do we acknowledge, on page 220.
Ilufinu male shira kayam ulashonenu rina veyadenu frosot kenishre shamayim beraklenu kanot kayalot Ilufinu
ורגלינו עלות חיילות. Every heart will revere you, and every mouth will sing to your name. Let all my bones exclaim, who is like you, Adonai? Bless Adonai, O my soul. And let my inner being praise your holy name. O God, in the power of your strength, great in the glory of your name, mighty forever, awesome in amazing deeds, the ruler who sits on high and exalted throne. Shochen Ad Marom, we are on the page, in the middle of page 222.
שוכן עד מרום וקדוש שמו, וכתוב רננו צדיקים באדוני, לישרים נבע תהילה, בפי ישרים תתהלל, ובדברי צדיקים תתברך, ובלשון חסידים תתרומם, ובקרב קדושים תתקדש, ובמקלות ריבות עמך בית ישראל, ברינה יתפאר שמך מלכנו, בכל דור ודור, ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו, האל המלך הגדול והקדוש בשמיים ובארץ, כי לך נאה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, שהוא שפחה לב זמרה, עוז ממשלה נצח גדולה גבורה, תהילה ותפארת, קדושה ומלכות, ברכות והודאות מעתה ועד עולם. ברוך אתה אדוני, אל מלך גדול בתשבחות, אל ההודעות אדון הנפלאות, הבוחר בשירי זמרה, מלך מלכי העולמים.
Page 224.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, ועמד יברך ירצה וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחייתך בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. וישמרה במבורך לעולם ולעולם והוויה, יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמיר קודשא בריחו, לעילם ינקוב ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תמירן באדמה, ואמרו אמן.
We're on page 226. The call for worship.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
seated. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו, מלך העולם, יוצר אור ובורא חושך, עושה שלום, בורא את הכל. Praised are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, creator of light and darkness, who makes peace and fashions all things. In mercy, you illuminate the world and those who live upon it. In your goodness, you daily renew creation. How numerous are your works, Adonai. In wisdom, you form them all, filling the earth with your creatures. We praise Adonai, our God, for the excellent work of your hands, and for the lights you created. May they glorify you. Shine a new light upon Zion, that we all may swiftly merit its radiance. Praise are you, Adonai, creator of all heavenly lights. Baruch atah Adonai, yotzer hameorot. Avarava avtanu, you have loved us with a deep love. You have given us trust and a legacy through your Torah and your mitzvot. Enlighten our eyes with your Torah. Focus our minds on your mitzvot. Unite us with our hearts, with our souls, so we can connect with you. Then we will never feel shame, never deserve rebuke, and never stumble. Having trusted in your great and awesome holiness, we will celebrate your salvation, that intersection between justice and love. We will celebrate that salvation with joy. Guide us in peace from the four corners of the earth and lead us upright to our land. For you, O God, work wonders. You chose us truly. You drew us near to your great name that we might acknowledge you, declaring you one in love, understanding your unity, the diversity of your unity with love. Praise be you, Adonai, who chooses your people Israel in love. Baruch atah Adonai, bocher be'amo Israel, be'ahava. If you are wearing a talit, I invite you to put the four corners of your talit together as a symbol of our search for unity, for internal unity, and for communal, civic, national unity. Unity doesn't mean becoming the same. Unity means understanding and recognizing the complexity of our beings. And then, the unity of God. We're on page 232. Shema Israel Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Please join me on page 234 with Ve'ahavta. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha uvechol nafshecha uvechol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha Vishinantam nevanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha v'lechtecha b'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha u'kshartam neot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uv'yisharecha. We continue in English in the middle of page 236. Adonai said to Moses as follows, "Speak to the Israelite people and instruct them to make for themselves fringes on the corners of their garments throughout the ages. Let them attach a cord of blue to the fringe at each corner. That shall be your fringe. Look at it and recall all the commandments of Adonai and observe them, so that you do not follow your heart and eyes in your lustful urge. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אמן.
אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. אמת ביציב ובחביב בנורא בדיר בטוב ביפה, הדבר עשה עלינו ללהם בהן. Rejoice, Moshe and Miriam and Israel responded with song to you, all of them proclaiming, who is like you, O God, Ichamocha Bailim Adonai. We turn our Siorim to page 240 for the blessing for redemption, Merkata Geulah. And as we studied yesterday, redemption is that intersection between love and justice. And this time of the year in which we seek for teshuvah, we seek for personal redemption. We try to reconnect with that sense of justice, but not without a deep sense of love.
מי כמוך בעלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש.
Yerushalayim, the eternal capital of the Jewish people, and and a symbol of our search, us being seekers of spiritual center, our spiritual core. עיני שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך. God, open up my lips, up my mouth. May declare your praise. Help me to become that prayer. Let me connect with the words that I need to say, with the words that I need to find.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, אלוהי אברהם, אלוהי יצחק ואלוהי יעקב, אלוהי שרה, אלוהי רבקה, אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומר חסדים טובים וקונה הכל, וזוכה חסי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לפני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה מתים אתה רב להושיע, מוריד אתה. מחכה חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומדומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות נפל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים. נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלך על הארץ, כבודו. אדיר, אדירנו, אדוני, אדוננו, מעטיר, שמך בכל הארץ, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו ומלכנו, ומושיענו והוא ישמיענו, ורחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון, לדור ודור. הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
שמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות השבת לדורתם ברית עולם, בני ובן בני ישראל, אותי לעולם, כי שאת ימין עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ויום השביעי שבת בין נפש אלוהינו. ורוצה מנוחתנו, קדשנו מצוותיך ותקנו. ששמך ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. ויצא אדוני אלוהינו מלך ישראל ותביא לאדם בבת תקבל ותראה רצון תמיד עבודת ישראל עמך ותקרב לכל קורף עונה אל כל עבדיך חננו ושכחך עלינו, ותחזיר עינינו בשובך לציון. ברוך אתה אדוני המחזיר שכינתו לציון. להנחלך את אדוני לאלוהינו ולאלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, לעם בחץ ולחיינו בגן אישנו, אתה ולדור ודור, ועד לך ונתפאר תהילתך על חיינו ומסרים בידיך, שמותינו ופקודות לך בכל יום חיינו. קבינו לך, וכולם יתברך ותרוך גם קבין, כל החיים בדור ישראל, לא תשמח. מדברות אחת. We are at the bottom of page 260. עושה שלום במרומיו ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, כל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן. We ask for wholeness, we ask for peace at the end of תפילת עמידה.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו
Turn now our Sidurim to page 362 for Seder Otzad Sefer Torah as we take the Torah from the Ark. Ein kamocha Elohim
Adonai, vein kema'asecha, malchutecha malchut kol olamim, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. כי מציון תצא תורה, כי
kadosh Adonai Eloheinu, ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Good Shabbos, good Shabbos, good Shabbos. And I have good news for all the 4 people that are right now here. And these are the good news. I'll help you out for those that need some help. The good news are that you all will participate somehow, including you, Saki, in the Torah service. And the reason for that is because today we don't have a Zoom connection in our service. So in the near future, we will be able to bring you to participate in the Torah service through our Zoom communication, and then invite you for an Aliyah. But today, we will need to invite all those that are here for Aliyahs. And we have exactly 3 plus Maftir, and we have exactly 1, 2, 3 plus Maftir. So here we go. Now, this Torah portion, let me put the Torah so she's a bit more comfortable. Let's don't lose we'll find it. This Torah portion is quite of an interesting one, and yes, I know you say that every time I start talking about the Torah portion, I think that is quite an interesting one, maybe because the Torah itself is a very interesting, I was about to say book, but Torah is not just a book, it's a life legacy. So I wanted to explore with you one of the most interesting topics of this Torah portion, in my opinion, which is some of the laws of war. What happens when you go to war? What you are supposed to do? Now, what you are supposed to do is the question that you would ask. Okay, so we are going to talk about war, so we are going to hear about attack techniques or defense techniques. And instead of that, we hear about different topics. One that we won't discuss much today, for example, is how you're supposed to treat the trees that you meet when you enter a city, and how you try to achieve and reach for peace, which is a very relevant topic in these days. Unfortunately, peace is always a relevant topic because we have a tendency to war. But no, the Torah starts off by telling us who are those who are not supposed to go to war. There's a list of people, and it's quite an interesting list. So let's explore that list. Let's explore what that list says. So if there's a man who has built a new house and has not yet inaugurated it, let him go and return to his house, lest he die in the war and another man inaugurate it. So if you build a new house, you are absolved from war. Is there a man who has planted a vineyard, a kerem, and has not yet redeemed it? Let him go, he return to his house, lest he die in the war and another man redeem it. Is there a man who has betrothed a woman and has not yet taken her in marriage? Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in the war and another man take her in marriage. So number 1 was the house. Number 2, the vineyard. Number 3, the wife. And number four, the most interesting. But before we get in number 4, Ramban says, for example, well, this is quite straightforward. Actually, I teach you some chokhmah, some wisdom in life. Why he says that? He says, well, first you need to build a house. Then you need to develop some business. And then go and get married. Don't do it before. So that's what Ramban says. And his language is quite blunt when he explains that idea. Now, another interpretation says that you don't want to have with you people that might be too busy thinking of something else when you are dealing with such a big challenge, when you are in a war. Now think about any challenge that you are dealing with, and you need to recognize your partners. You need to look around and see who are those that are standing next to you, because this challenge might be life-threatening or existential. You want to make sure that those that are standing next to you, they are 100% there. You are there or you're not. And if your mind is somewhere else, well, then you are not. This is about being fully present. Now, number 4 is there is a man who is fearful and faint-hearted. So, Ida, who is afraid. Let him go and return to his house, that he should not cause the heart of his brothers to melt like his heart. So, once again, the Torah says, if there's a man who is too fearful, who is not able, because of his emotional situation, to be in this war, let him go. Now, why you should let him go? Because you don't want to start a chain or a sequence of disaster. The fear that the Torah is speaking about is contagious. So you can't jeopardize your troops and all the rest of the people or the war itself for that fear. So you recognize that man and you say, okay, this is not the place for you to be here. So go somewhere else. Now there's an interesting component there. It has to do with what is the function of pachad, of ira, of fear. Is it human at all not to be afraid? Like, do you know anyone who hasn't experienced fear? Is it a good thing not to experience fear? Is it like a rational idea to go to war without any fear? I don't want my soldiers to be fearful of their lives. I want, when our soldiers are protecting in Israel the boundaries of the state or in the United States, protecting the ideals of democracy and freedom in different places in the world, I want them to be fearful of their lives. So why is the Torah saying, if there's someone who is fearful, let him go? You don't want that to become contagious. So what kind of fear we are talking about? What kind of presence we are talking about? What kind of chain we are talking about? And I think that what Torah is trying to share is this idea. Are you familiar? We're not going to sing it, but with a very famous, it's more famous as a song, the quote from Rabbi Nachman of Braslav, Kol ha'olam kulo, Gesher tzar meod, the entire world is a narrow bridge, be'aikar, but the principle, the most important thing is
Not to be afraid.
lo lefached klal, not to be afraid. Now, got for news for you. That's not the original saying from Rabbi Nachman. The original saying says, lo lifached, not lo lefached. Le'ifached, not lefached. Le'ipached is a nifal, is a reflective word. And the distinction between lefached and le'ipached is the distinction between acknowledging and having a fear and becoming that fear, and allowing that fear be the main component when you decide how to behave in your life. If you become your fear, so the question is, where are you? And the answer is, you're not here. If you are not here, you better be somewhere else, because we're in a war. Now, if you have fear, well, fear is not a bad thing. And I was hearing two colleagues speaking about this week. And actually, in the context of the word fear, they were talking about presence or absence, and in the context of and chain reactions, in the context of the continuity of Jewish communities. The fear that many of our members that have saved money their entire lives are experiencing right now, because they see it every day and they look at the stock market and they go and they see the numbers going down and down. And for many, this is a very scary moment. And they are rightfully fearful. But the question is, when we are in a crisis, when we are dealing with a very challenging moment, are we going to become that fear? What are we going to allow that fear to do with us? They were talking about that in the context of supporting the synagogue. If you decide that when there is a crisis, you don't support your temple, your synagogue, the things that are essential to you, even though we all know that we are all struggling. So what's the message? What's the chain reaction? So maybe for the synagogue to experience more hardship, but maybe for your children to see you and say, well, so the synagogue or my Jewish organization is the first thing that I cut when I am in a crisis, when I am fearful, the first place to which I turn my back. And what happens with the teachers that are learning to be Jewish educators, and they say, well, the first place that these people will, that our people will live is actually the synagogue, so might not be the place for me to develop my career and my future. And I truly think that that's a real concern. How do we manage in this time, this scary time, in order to keep acting in the places that are essential, and not to allow the fear stop us from moving forward, for sustaining those things that are essential, from being present in our battles, how we prevent ourselves from becoming that fear. Last thing, at the end of our Torah portion, Gabi will read in the maftir in a few more minutes. Let me get it 1 second. She will read. I'm about to tell you what she will read. Actually, I will read one for you. You know, Gabi, what you're going to read in the maftir?
Read a little bit for you.
Oh, okay. I found it. Anyway, no. Okay. So, what happens? Here it is. some reason. We are on Deuteronomy, Kaf Aleph, which is 20, first verse. Chapter 20, the first verse. כי מצא חלל באדמה, באשר אדוני אלוהיך נותן לך, לרשתה נפול בשדה לא נודע מי יכהו. If in the land that the Lord your God is assigning to you to possess, someone slain is found lying in the open, the identity of the slayer is not known. And then the Torah will discuss that situation. We started with the Torah telling us that we will receive a land and we need to manage that land. We need to have shoftim, the officers that take care, judges and officers that take care of that land, that they administrate justice in that land. And at the end of the Torah portion, the Torah tells us, well, what happens when you find someone who have died and is laying down dead right there in your land, somewhere outside your city, by his death, and is in your land. And then they say, your elders and magistrates shall go out and measure the distances from the corpse to the nearby towns. The elders of the nearest town to the corpse shall then take a heifer, which has never been worked, which has never pulled in a yoke. And the elders of that town shall bring the heifer down to the ever-flowing body, which is not tilled or sown. There, in the body, they shall break the heifer's neck, sacrifice. The priest, son of Levi, shall come forward, for the Lord your God has chosen them to minister to him and to pronounce blessing in the name of the Lord. And every lawsuit and case of assault is subject to their ruling. Then all the elders of the town nearest to the corpse shall wash their hands over the heifer whose neck was broken in the body, and they shall make this declaration: our hands did not shed this blood, nor did our eyes see it done. Absolve, Kaper, Yom Kippur, O Lord, your people, Israel, whom you redeem, and do not let guilt for the blood of the innocent remain among your people, Israel, and they will be absolved of blood guilt. Thus, you will remove from your midst guilt for the blood of the innocent, for you will be doing what is right in the sight of God. Now, there are two interesting things in this law. What happens is they are finding a body, and now they need to decide to which town that body belongs, but nobody understands what happened to that body. And the question is, who is responsible? Who is responsible? And they actually do a blessing, and they say, well, we are basically not responsible, or not totally responsible, but there is some level of responsibility here. Now, an interesting thing that Hiskuni says, our hands have not spilled this blood. Now, the interesting thing is, the Torah says, Yadenu lo shafcha, as opposed to shafchu. Hiskuni says, it's an unusual way to say shafcha, because we say Yadenu, our hands, and then a plural word should come as opposed to a singular word, shafcha, as opposed to shafchu. And then he says, according to the sages, a host is duty bound to provide his guest with 5 amenities. The letter He remains the number 5. Food, drink. So when you have a guest, you need to give him food, drink. Accompany him a short distance when he leaves, provide with a bed for the night if he wishes to stay for the night, and give to him an ever so minimal gift in his departure. The letter Hey would therefore be a veiled reference to that law. You might well ask if the Torah really thought that the priests and elders who lived many kilometers distant from where this murder occurred had really been suspected of having had a hand in this deed. What should they need to have to declare that they were innocent of this crime? Rashi explains that the declaration by the elders and priests refers to the murdered person not having been seen by any of them. You remember last week, Parashat Re'eh, we spoke about seeing each other? So what Rashi is saying, that the problem with all the situation is that no one saw him, and having been denied anything he had asked for. The rabbis felt also that possibly the murdered person, after having been denied his needs in the last city he visited, who are those who are denied their needs in the cities that they visit, in the cities that they live? Who are they? Maybe the homeless. So he was there, he was there, he was there, he was denied, he was denied, he was denied. He was in the streets. So he was hungry, the rabbis say. And then Rashi explains, maybe he turned to the first person who he encountered who had some food on him and was so hungry that tried to snatch it. And as a result of which a fight developed in which he was killed. He might even have acted in self-defense and had become a victim. Eineinu lo ra'u, our eyes have not seen this individual while he was alive, so that we could have become guilty of not performing our duty toward him. The duty hinted at, according to Rashi, is to give him safe conduct. An alternate interpretation, there is a saying in the Talmud according to which when someone extends a loan to a person, he has to remain where they parted until the borrower is not longer between his field of vision. Now, the deeper question is, where does our responsibility toward others end? What's the extension of our responsibility? Can we just say, well, we have nothing to do with that? So yes, there are people sleeping in the train station in downtown Fullerton. And yes, like 34 people died last July in the streets in Orange County. But we didn't see them, and we didn't kill them, and we have nothing to do with them. Well, the Torah has a different idea. The Torah says, yes, it's not your fault, not directly your fault, but you cannot say that you have nothing to do with that. You can't just disconnect yourself from that reality. You need to acknowledge that reality. You need to do something to better the conditions, the circumstances, to provide food, to provide conduct, to provide hospitality in order to reduce that phenomenon. So, with these two ideas, with the idea of when our fear becomes a chain and a backlash, becomes an impediment and becomes our identity, with the idea of what's the extension of our responsibility. And I don't have the answer. It's for each of us to define. But certainly, it's important to acknowledge and to recognize that we might need to rethink that, to rethink the extension of our responsibility, of our commitment, of our engagement. With these two ideas of paralysis and indifference, we will get into the reading of Parashat Mishpatim. As you have a Siddur, I will call you for the first Aliyah. You can do it for there. Evan is right there. And Gabby will read, and I will point the Torah. So we are all ready. Zach, you are number 2. Okay, and where's my yad? How do you prepare? Here it is. Evan, what's your Hebrew name? Ari Yosef. Yamod, Yamod, La Aliyah Rishonad, Ari Yosef Ben, the son of your mother and father. Lisa and Ed. Ben Lisa and Ed. And I am pointing for you. I promise that I'm pointing in the right place. You say, Baruch et Adonai mevorach. Baruch Adonai mevorach leolam ba'ed. Baruch Adonai mevorach leolam ba'ed. Baruch. Amen.
שופטים ושוטרים, תיתן לך בכל שעריך, אשר אדוני אלוהיך נותן לך לשבתך, ושפטו את העם משפט צדק. לא תטה משפט, לא תכיר פנים, ולא תיקח שוחד, כי השוחד יעבר עיני חכמים, ויסלף דברי צדיקים. צדק צדק תרדוף, למען תחיה, וירשת את הארץ, אשר אדוני אלוהיך נותן לך.
כוח. אמן. יישר כוח, יישר כוח. יעמוד, יעמוד, לעלייה השנייה. Is your Hebrew name Zachariah? Zachary ben Jesse בדיעם. ברכו את אדוני המבורך. ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני.
אשר בחר בנו מכל
כל
העמים,
העמים, ונתן לנו את תורתו. נותן התורה, אמן.
אמן.
לא
לא תיטע לך אשר כל עץ אצל מזבח אדוני אלוהיך אשר תעשה לך, ולא תקים לך מצבה אשר שנה אדוני אלוהיך, לא תזבח לאדוני אלוהיך אשר ועשה אשר יהיה בו מום כל דבר רע, כי תועבת אדוני אלוהיך הוא.
אמן. יישר כוח, יישר כוח. תעמוד, תעמוד לעלייה השלישית. גבריאל בת.
בגו
I want to say Mark. I can't
Mark.
remember my dad's Hebrew name right now.
Da-
Sorry, Dad.
Gabriel, Bat, Phyllis, Bemahar. Keep on.
Baruch hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai mevorach leolam ba'ed.
Baruch Adonai Mevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Ki yimatzeh v'kirbecha be'achad she'arecha asher Adonai Elohecha noten lecha. Ish o isha asher yaseh et hara be'enei Adonai Elohecha la'avor berito. Vayelech vayavod Elohim acherim vayishtachu lahem velo leshemesh o layareach o lechol tzeva hashamayim asher lo tziviti v'hugadecha v'shamata
Arashta.
v'darashta hetev v'hine emet nachon hadavar ne'esta hato'eva zot be'Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. So, an interesting thing that Gabi just read about what's the idea of Torah about astrology and what the Torah says here is a bit more nuanced than that. But what Torah says here is that it's toeva, like a terrible sin, an abominable thing. Now, in order to invite you to explore it a little bit, I will ask one of those questions that I don't answer. How do we greet people when they have a simcha? What do we say?
Mazel tov.
Mazel tov. What's the first word of mazel tov?
Mazel.
Mazal. And what is mazal? The horoscopy.
It's what?
The astrological signs in Hebrew are called mazalot.
Oh.
So actually, when we wish to people mazal tov or mazel tov, we're almost appealing to this kind of magic that the Torah just rejected. Is that a straightforward? Is that a straightforward answer? No. There's some more complexity. I will be happy to discuss that one day. But if we don't get to do it, I totally encourage you to do an afternoon Shabbos study and to explore those questions. So I will do, I am here, so I'm not going to call myself. I will do the blessing for the reading of the Master. Which is, Yavi, remind me where you are starting.
Ve'anu, ve'amru, yadenu.
Where? I couldn't hear you. Ve'anu ve'amru? Fine. Baruch et Adonai mevorach.
Baruch Adonai mevorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai mevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai mevorach le'olam va'ed. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיונה נתן בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen.
באנו ואמרו.
וענו ואמרו ידינו לא שפכו. Yeah.
שפחה.
Who?
שפחה.
Who?
That's what I explained 5 minutes ago. Actually, the translation rectifies that for the purpose, and you are reading that from a page that you printed not out of the Torah.
Well, the Torah doesn't have
The
that.
Torah,
Anyways.
the Torah says that's an important thing.
Okay.
So the translations try to adjust that. The word shafcha.
שפכה את הדם הזה ועינינו לא ראו. כפר לעמך ישראל, ישראל אשר פדית אדוני, ואל תיתן דם נקי בקרב עמך ישראל, ונכפר להם הדם. ואתה תבער הדם הנקי מקרבך, כי תעשה הישר בעיני אדוני.
אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיונה נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen.
Zach, do we have any possibility to actually do a close-up and show what the Torah itself? Because most people at home, no? If I turn the podium, people can see that. And then you can do a real close-up to it. I think it's going to be too complicated. But in a way, believe me, so what the translation does in these cases, they make it just work. And we say hands, and therefore the word should be shafchu, a plural word. The word is singular. And that's why the rabbis discuss about the nuances, this question about why is a hey written in the Torah as opposed to a vav. And so the translation doesn't think a lot, and that's what you have, whatever is printed from there.
There is no vowel. It's the vowel, the u vowel without the.
That's also
We'll be sure to
it's an
send
interpret.
us.
So the nikud, good point.
Yeah.
That the nikud, the punctuation in the Torah, is a translation, is an interpretation, by definition. And that's the reason. Here is a hey, plain shafcha. Okay. We're gonna please rise if you are at home or wherever you are, in your spirit or in your legs, for Agba Angle Lila. And I almost forgot to say Misheverach. When the second, don't rise yet. For all those that came out to the Torah, in honor of the Torah and our congregation, may you receive God's blessing of protection and from any trouble or distress, and may God bless you in all your endeavors, together with all Israel, and let us say Amen. And we take a moment to acknowledge also those that are ill. Sheberach Avotenu ve'imotenu, u'yevarech et hacholim. May the one who blessed our ancestors will bless those who are ill. And if you have a name that you like to share, please do so in the comments. And if you have here a name that you like to share, please do so. May the blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and spirit. And let us say Amen.
Amen.
And now, yes, let's get back to the order. Please rise, legs or spirit for Agba Anglilila. Bezot HaTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Israel al pi Adonai beyad Moshe. Al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, העולם עומד. על על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים העולם עומד, על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים, על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים, על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים, על שלושה דברים העולם עומד. Yallai dai 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 dai, yallai dai 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 dai, yallai dai dai dai, yallai dai 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 dai, yallai dai 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 dai, yallai dai 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 dai, yallai dai 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 dai. Yallai da la da la, yambai da la da la da la da la da da la da la. הושיע את עמך וברך את נחלתך. הורה 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 ברחמים וברחמים. And on page 374. עץ חיימי למחזיקים בה בתומכיה מאושר דרכיה דרכי נועם וכל נתיבותיה שלום. השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה, חדש ימינו כקדם. Return us to you, Adonai, and we will return, renew our days. We're on page 586 for עלינו לשבח.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
At this point of our service, we take a moment to acknowledge mourners among our community. We acknowledge those during the first 7 days of mourning, Shiva. Think of those during the first 30 days of mourning, Shloshim. And those during the cycle of the first year of mourning. And so we do of those that are remembering the Yortzeit, anniversary, death this week. I invite you to share the names of your dear ones, the comments, and if you have someone who you're remembering today. Page 598. גדל בית קדש שמי רבה. ועלמה תברא חילותי, וימליך מלכותי. בחייכון וביומכון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהא שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא. ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי תקודשה.
בריחו.
לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תמירם בלמה, ואמרו אמן.
אמן.
יש למה רבה מן שמיה בחיים טובים עלינו ועל כל ישראל באמרו אמן.
אמן.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל באמרו אמן. May the memories of your dear ones be a blessing in your life. יהיה זכרם ברוך. So, we have been saying for some time that we will start trying some different pew themes, some different poems in order to enrich some pieces of our service. And we usually conclude our Shacharit Shabbat with Adon Olam. And one of the things that we do, I have a guitar problem today. I'm not sure what's happening, so give me 1 second to at least put it back so this is not falling. So one of the things that we do, we try to bring Jewish melodies from different places of the world. Some are more modern, some are actually very, very old. For example, the Adon Olam that we sing very often here, the Adon Olam Asher Malach, is a French-Moroccan melody. And I was talking with someone and said, well, like, why is French Moroccan? Well, Morocco was a French colony, and there was a gigantic Jewish community in Morocco. But there still is a Jewish community, and there are many Moroccan Jews in Israel. Many melodies came from there, and when many of them moved to France, so they also developed melodies. And so it is right for many places in the Jewish world, and also the diversity of Jewish tradition is quite a joy. And all that to say that we will be turning our Sidurim to page 631 for Ein Keloheinu, but Ein Keloheinu is going to be half in Hebrew and half in Ladino. So if you have a Sidur, turn it to page 631, and otherwise we will soon have it in our screen. Malkeinu, enke Moshienu, non como nuestro Dios, non como nuestro Señor, non como nuestro Rey, non como nuestro Salvador. Mike Eloheinu, Mike Adonenu, Mike Malkeinu, Mike Moshienu, quien como nuestro Dios, quien como nuestro Rey, quien como nuestro Salvador. No del Eloheinu, no del Adonenu, no del Malkeinu, no del Moshienu. Oremos a nuestro Dios, oremos a nuestro Señor, oremos a nuestro Rey, oremos a nuestro Salvador. Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu. Bendito nuestro Dios, bendito nuestro Señor, bendito nuestro Rey, bendito nuestro Salvador. Atau Eloheinu, Atau Adonenu, Atau Malkeinu, Atau Moshienu. Sos nuestro Dios, May God gives us the courage, the strength, as opposed to the fear that paralyzes. And we can embrace the blessing of wholeness, of integrity, and peace. Na'os lamo iten, Adonai yevarech et amo b'shalom. Good Shabbos, everyone. La 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 la